The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com.
Say what's on my mind at any given time of day, cause I'm a renegade. Never been afraid to holler about.
All right, welcome into the Sports Renegades here on SportsTownChicago.com. I'm Ryan Stuprich.
And I'm Ryan Risky.
And yes, today we just found out not too long ago that Kris Bryant is the NL MVP, and that's very exciting. He deserved the award. He was also with Daniel Murphy was up for the award, and so was Corey Seager, right? Was the other one? I believe It was Corey Seager. Yeah. So
and Bryant ran away with it.
He ran away with it.
He got one second place vote. Daniel Murphy got one first place vote from a New York writer.
Yep. So I mean, obviously, there's a little bit of a comparison there with. Maybe he liked him when he was with the Mets, and who knows. But, yeah, it was certainly a well-deserved award. No question about it.
I mean, and it was a pretty obvious award. Well-deserved, 39 home runs. I mean, I think a lot of people felt like he was kind of the main leader, big bat. He batted second most of the season. And then obviously he turned it on into the playoffs, and the Cubs won the World Series.
In the greatest Game 7 ever.
Probably the greatest game ever.
It very well could have been. There was
maybe second or third best.
Obviously, so many ups and downs and stuff. I know people were comparing it to the 1991 Game 7 between the Twins and the Braves, which also went 10 innings. But that was just a crazy game, obviously, and of course the Cubs ended up winning, so that was the best thing about it, because I don't think we've been on the air since they won. I think we were on the air when they were in the NLCS. So it's very exciting, obviously. And David Ross, in his last year, in his last game as a baseball player, he ends up hitting a home run off of the best reliever in the game, Andrew Miller. So
remember when he was so unhittable?
Yeah, I know. And then Game 6 and 7 started to weigh down on him, and the Cubs were able to get to him.
It started with that Game 4 home run that Fowler hit off of him.
Yeah, and sort of, it was sort of a blowout. He hits the home run. That was the first World Series home run at Wrigley Field in quite some time, obviously.
Do you know what the Cubs' record at Wrigley Field is in the World Series?
They only won one game, right?
Yeah, I mean all time.
Oh, all time? I would guess it's below 500.
Are you ready for this one?
Yeah.
3-13.
3-13. Hey, well, we got one of so before this year, they only had won 2 home games while they were in the World Series.
Field.
Wow.
So in other words, if Cleveland had won Game 5, they would have more wins at Wrigley Field in this year's World Series than the Cubs had all time at Wrigley.
Yeah, there was a lot of crazy stats throughout that whole series, with just a lot of crazy information.
A lot of it, and I hate how people are like, blah, blah, blah is the first Cub player to do this in the playoffs, and I'm just kind of thinking, that's because they have no stats. Cubs playoff stats are like Bears quarterback stats. There are none.
Exactly. And, when you haven't played in the World Series since 1945, when the game was completely different back then, by the way, a lot of things change. And, yes, a lot of those stats were kind of useless, especially how Fox kept, every time there was a Cub stat up there, it was like, okay, but that doesn't really make much sense because it's been, 60-something years since they made the playoffs in the World Series.
And then all the stats of, like now Bryant is now the Cubs' all-time leading postseason home run leader with 6. Schwarber and Rizzo and Russell all have 5. They're tied for second. And I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, it took 2 years. It took Schwarber one postseason to set the record last year before Bryant broke it this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the second coming of Kyle Schwarber was which was probably my favorite story of the whole World Series, besides the fact of the Cubs winning the World Series. I think my second favorite thing was Schwarber comes back off for 6 or 7 months or whatever after he got hurt in the 4th game of the season, and he just comes back, and it's like he never left, the way that he hits and stuff. I mean, this is a Babe Ruth type hitter. It's ridiculous.
the way that he performs in the offseason, in the playoffs, would make me think he's just considered untouchable right now. I mean, it's like insane how good he hits in the playoffs. He's like, you can't pitch to him. You saw, as you said, it looked like he hadn't even missed a beat.
Right. It's like he didn't miss a beat. In that first game back, he almost hits a home run. He hit a double off the wall in Cleveland. I mean, it's just crazy.
And don't forget a 3-hit game in Game 7.
I know, and he, of course, he's the one that gets that 10th inning all started with a base hit, into right field, and then they pull him for a pinch runner. It's just crazy. It's crazy how much he meant to that team, and specifically that Game 7 too.
Right. I mean, there was a lot. I mean, a lot of things happened in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was the most exciting playoffs ever, and I mean that's the only way the Cubs could have won it. It would have to be in dramatic fashion. It would have to be feeling good, and then all of a sudden heartbreak when Rajai Davis ties the game, and then you go back to being all happy and elated in the 10th inning. It's just. It was a whole bunch of ups and downs, which is sort of what the microcosm of Cubs fans are.
Right. I mean, I figured either they're going to have to do some insane comeback in the World Series, and this is before, even before they made it. I was just kind of thinking either that or they're just going to storm through the playoffs the way the White Sox did in 2005.
Yeah.
And I was thinking it would be the latter. I was thinking it would probably be the one they have to make some insane comeback. And even when they were down 3-1, I didn't even get to watch Game 4. I had to work. I was covering a high school football game.
Well, luckily you didn't miss anything.
Well, and the funny thing, I was covering the game. I was actually covering the high school I went to. They lost a heartbreaker because of a horrible call. And then I got back, and my boss told me, he's like, you seem more upset about Niqua losing than the Cubs being down 3-1 and getting destroyed tonight. And I just told him in a calm voice, that's because I already know the Cubs are going to win the World Series. They're winning the next 3 games.
Yeah, you were very confident about it, I know. I was
honestly,
confident.
I was never, I'm going to be honest, I was never worried until Davis hit that home run.
Yeah.
Then I was just kind of like, is this really happening? Which, I mean, I still, except when that rain delay happened, then I had a good feeling they were going to be able to regroup and come back and win it.
I was worried. I mean, I could feel it starting to unravel before Rajai Davis hit the home run, because when it
started when Hendricks was taken out.
Yeah, when it was 6-4, I turned to my dad. I was like, "Can't you just kind of feel like it's going to blow up?" And he's like, "No, I don't think so." And then a couple minutes later, Rajai Davis hits the home run. I just put my head down as soon as I heard it be hit, and I could see it, and I was like, "Shit!" I was like, "Shoot, that's going out, into left field." I put my head down. I was like, come on. But then I agree with that rain delay. It sort of gave the team new life, and it sort of gave us fans new life, because we, it kind of felt like it was a fresh start for the top of the 10th, and also in that bottom of the 9th when Jason Kipnis, he hit a foul ball, but I mean, if he would have squared that up a little better, I think that could have been gone.
That ball looked good off the bat.
Yeah, it looked good off the bat. It had the sound. The crowd started to roar a little bit, and I was like, uh-oh, and then it went foul, luckily.
Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy game. It was a crazy series, and I mean, I couldn't figure out why, though. Like, usually you get this sick feeling in your stomach, or just like this feeling of anxiousness. You don't know what's happening. I couldn't figure out why I was never getting it. I was like, this is the Cubs. This is my favorite team. I want to see them win, and I never got that feling of nervousness.
I was nervous before Game 6 started, but then when Bryant hit the home run in the first inning, I was certain that we were going to Game 7.
And even in Game 5, when it was so close, they were down early, and then Chapman comes in the 7th inning, and I was like, I couldn't figure out why I was not nervous at all, and then I pretty much just came to the conclusion was I already knew they were going to win.
Well, luckily they didn't let you down, Ryan, because it would have been awful, obviously, if they would have lost that game. But, of course, it was back and forth, and then Mike Montgomery gets the last out, and Bryant slips right after he throws the ball. Luckily, it wasn't while he was throwing. It was just right after he threw it. Otherwise, maybe that ball isn't thrown so well. Who knows? But
the funny thing about
it was
that,
just really exciting.
The funny thing about that play is, I don't know if you watched the Jimmy Kimmel show when they had Bryant on there.
Yes, I did.
And they showed he has this big smile on his face,
right.
And it's before he gets the ball and throws it. And Kimmel's just like, what would have happened if you had thrown that ball away or missed the ball and you had this big smile on your face?
That would have been bad, obviously.
And I think really what this proved, it doesn't matter what the history of the Cubs was, 108 years or nothing. This is a completely different group of players than they've had the last 108 years, and they're not going to be fazed by any curse or any drought. This is a team that's determined to win, and they've got a good chance to repeat, and later on we're going to continue to talk about what they need to do in the off season.
Yes, we will. We're going to take an update right now, and then we'll finish up wrapping up this Cubs talk. We'll probably talk about the Cy Young going to Scherzer instead of either Kyle Hendricks or John Lester. But first, an update here on Sports Renegades, SportsTownChicago.com. All right, welcome back here to Sports Renegades on SportsTownChicago.com. We were talking about the Cubs Game 7, just sort of recapping it because we had not yet gotten a chance to do so. We talked about Chris Bryant being the NL MVP, and now I guess we'll transition real quick to the NL Cy Young going to Max Scherzer. I guess it wasn't a huge surprise. Everyone was saying Max Scherzer was going to win it. He had more innings than Kyle Hendricks, unfortunately.
He had a hell of a lot more strikeouts.
And he had a lot more strikeouts per nine, obviously.
He finished with like 274 strikeouts.
Right.
I'm not shocked because when you have two pitchers for the same team that are in the finalists, that means they're taking votes from each other. It happened with Greinke and Kershaw last year.
True.
Granted, Arrieta probably was the clear favorite for it last year. Lester was just really good this year. 19 wins, low ERA, a lot of strikeouts. Hendricks led the MLB in ERA. Scherzer, he had a higher wins above replacement than both of them. 270 plus strikeouts. That's absurd.
Right, and he also was like the clear-cut guy in the Nationals rotation. He was the one guy you didn't want to face in that rotation, whereas the Cubs had like four.
Yeah, in Scherzer, sub-3 ERA. It's really tough to pick against him. However, Lester or Hendricks probably would have been the Cy Young Award winner in the AL because Rick Porcello pretty much has a similar pitch repertoire as Hendricks.
Right.
Pitches to contact, gets a lot of ground balls, soft contact, doesn't strike too many guys out. And Porcello had an ERA that was at 1 point higher than Hendricks.
Yeah, he did. And, of course, the other guys that were in it for them were Justin Verlander and Corey Kluber.
And we know Justin Verlander's wife is upset.
Oh, my gosh, I know. I know you saw those tweets. I saw them, too.
I think those are candidates for Tweets of the Year. I thought those were hilarious.
Yeah, should we have some awards for Tweets of the Year? Because that was crazy what Kate Upton said. It was entertaining, but...
some of it she did have a point, though. Like, Rick Porcello did not get one single first-place vote.
Yeah, I think it's a little ridiculous.
If you're not getting a single first-place vote, I don't think you should be the winner.
Right.
Verlander had an incredible rebound season from the past couple where he's just been terrible.
Yeah.
He hit the 200 mark in the innings pitched and strikeouts at a mid-threes ERA. He was great. He was the leader of the Detroit Tigers staff, and the funny thing is the two Cy Young winners were former Detroit pitchers.
Ah, very true, very true. Well, we know that they've had good rotations for a while. And then, of course, they got the young guy, Michael Fulmer now, who is also very good. So,
they got him in the Yoenis Cespedes trade.
Yeah, so they've been in the mix with a lot of things. Unfortunately, they were left out of the playoffs.
Just not the World Series.
Yeah, just not the World Series.
We saw Scherzer said last night he'd trade the Cy Young for the rings that Lester and Hendricks have.
Obviously, right? That's pretty obvious. So either way, Lester and Hendricks, they had great seasons. They get their rings. Hendricks, was sort of the big surprise of the National League's concern for starters. Way he started out as like the fourth starter and ends up being like the ace of the team, really.
Right, yeah, probably the number 2 behind Lester.
Right.
And I think he's going to eventually get into Jose Quintana territory where he just gets no recognition.
I guess it's possible. I hope he gets more recognition now that he has a ring.
Probably because he doesn't. It's the strikeouts are the problem. People care about strikeouts.
Yep. That is true. We're going to take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about the White Sox and what their sort of plan is moving forward. We'll talk about all that, and then we'll talk about the Bears, too, in the second hour, and that'll